In 2022, after 2 years of the Wuhan virus pandemic, China embarked on a diplomatic expedition. It recalibrated its foreign policy, toned down its geopolitical rhetoric, and made a return to the global stage. The man leading this return was the president himself, Xi Jinping. He ventured out of the country for the first time since January 2020. He launched a whirlwind tour of diplomatic talks, met leaders from dozens of countries, and tried repairing Beijing's strained ties. Overall, he undertook at least 3 overseas trips and met a total of 40 world leaders. The first trip came in September. Xi Jinping visited the Uzbek city of Samarkand and attended the Shanghai Cooperation Summit. And then he attended 2 more international summits, the gathering of G20 leaders in Indonesia and the APEC forum held in Thailand. At both these summits, he was seen shaking hands with his American, Australian, Japanese, and a host of other counterparts. His intention was simple: mending relations that had frayed in recent years. Both the Chinese media, the Chinese state media, and the Chinese foreign ministry heaped praises on Xi Jinping's efforts. They called it Xi-plomacy, diplomacy driven by Xi Jinping's thought. And as it turns out, this thought has failed to buy any buyers. 2 recent reports tell you how the first one is from the Czech Republic. Its president-elect is cozying up to Taiwan, a state Beijing considers to be an inalienable part of Chinese territory. And the second report is from Fiji, an island nation in Melanesia, the South Pacific to be precise. It is drifting away from China's ambit, muscling up against China's expansionist aims. Over the next few minutes, we will take you through these developments and tell you how China's new foreign policy is falling flat. How, despite softening its diplomatic tone, China is unable to make friends. Let me start with the Czech Republic. It recently elected a new president, Petr Pavel, the former chairman of the NATO's military committee, who wants to reassess Prague's relationship with China, a country he has publicly called the biggest and longest-lasting threat to the Czech Republic. Those were the exact words that he used to describe China during his election bid. And as it turns out, he really meant what he said. Because one of his first moves after winning the elections was dialing Tsai Ing-wen, the president of Taiwan. He held a 15-minute telephone conversation with her. This was a highly unusual move because last we checked, Taiwan and the Czech Republic do not have formal ties. And secondly, most countries avoid high-level public interactions with Taiwan in order to avoid provoking China, the world's second-largest economy. The president-elect did not care about any of this. Not only did he dial the Taiwanese president, but also discussed shared values of freedom, democracy, human rights. He confirmed this in a social media post. He said the 2 leaders have agreed to strengthen their partnership and also plan to meet in person in the future. And this is embarrassing to say the least. The question is, how is China perceiving this? With its usual bluster. Look at this headline. China is angered by this phone call. It says it could do irreparable damage to China-Czech relations. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has issued a detailed statement asking the Czech president to not cross any more red lines. The furious tone of the statement tells you just how upset Beijing really is. You have to listen to this.
Czech President-elect Pavel disregarded China's attempts to dissuade him and our repeated representations and insisted on crossing China's red line, seriously interfering in China's internal affairs and hurting the feelings of the Chinese people. China expresses our strong dissatisfaction and firm opposition to this and has lodged solemn representations with the Czech side. Before he was elected, Pavel publicly stated that one China principle should be respected, but now he backtracks. Where is his credibility? China has once again urged relevant parties in the Czech Republic to earnestly abide by the political commitment of one China principle, take immediate and effective measures to eliminate the negative impact of this incident, and avoid irreversible losses to the relations between China and Czech Republic.
Interestingly, this development comes just days after Beijing suffered another embarrassment. And this one came from Fiji. For the unversed, Fiji also got a new government recently. Sitiveni Rabuka became the country's prime minister last month, marking the first change of guard in over 16 years. A change that started with some bad news for China. Have a look at this headline. Fiji has scrapped a policing agreement with China, an agreement that allowed that Chinese personnel can work in the country's police force. And this agreement was signed in 2011 to strengthen cooperation between the two sides. Under this agreement, Fijian police officers underwent training in China and Chinese officers were deployed to Fiji on attachment programs for 3 to 6 months. And then last year, the two sides took things a notch further. They allowed the appointment of a Chinese police liaison officer in Fiji. And this led to questions on whether Fiji's sovereignty was under increasing threat from China. Fiji's new leader has put all these questions to rest. Not only has he suspended this agreement, but also issued a statement exposing China's intentions. Let me quote, "There is no need for us to continue. Our systems are different. Our system of democracy and justice systems are different. So we will go back to those that have similar systems with us." I repeat, we will go back to those that have similar systems with us. He didn't take any names, but it does not take a genius to guess what he was talking about. Democratic countries that have the same values as Fiji, not an authoritarian behemoth like China. Now, here's the thing. In the last 2 weeks, two countries have dealt diplomatic blows to Beijing. This is in addition to Beijing's countless other diplomatic tussles, like the ongoing supply chain spat with Japan. Remember, Japan has put restrictive measures on Chinese exports and travelers due to the prevailing COVID-19 situation in the country, also because of its muscle flexing in the South China Sea. And then we have South Korea, another Chinese neighbor. Recently, Beijing stopped issuing visas to South Koreans because the government there blamed China for the spike in the COVID-19 infections. These were just two examples. Besides these two countries, China has a never-ending trade war with America, an on-off supply chain battle with Australia, a fishing dispute with Malaysia, a border dispute with India. And now it has two more countries up in arms against its predatory policies. What does all of this tell you? That Xi-plomacy has failed. Xi Jinping's much-promoted return to the world stage, his attempts to reset ties with the world, his attempts to strike a conciliatory tone, they have all fallen flat. One by one, countries the world over are sensing China's intentions and calling it out for what it is. A predatory regime that does not strike friendships on the basis of mutual benefit, but on the basis of its hidden agendas to make the other a vassal state, a state it can thrive upon like a predator. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.